Welcome to Fellowship 1-7, a biblical podcast from Child Evangelism Fellowship for the Christian community. On this podcast, we discuss various biblical topics, passages, and truths, and how those truths have impacted the lives of people around the world. I'm your host, Elizabeth Yoder. Today, we're meeting with Sam and discussing our Missionary Sponsorship Program for Nationals, or SPAN, as we call it. So before we get too far into that, would you mind just giving us a little bit of a background of your experience in ministry and with CEF?
Hey, thank you. It's really good, Elizabeth, that I could be here on this podcast. And as you mentioned, my name is Sam. I've been living in one of the sensitive countries of the world. And while I was there, the Lord blessed me to come into ministry to serve with children. He's put this heart of really loving working with children. Mm-hmm. So wherever I go, let's say it's in an adult gathering or a church gathering, and when I see children, I really want to engage with them. So right now, I am the Associate Director for Child Evangelism Ministry in that sensitive area.
Yes, that's awesome. And you shared a little bit of your history with us recently of just how God has very much impacted your life from a young age and how He has been with you every step of the way. And for us here, who had the privilege of listening to that, it was a really amazing testimony. Are you okay sharing that here, or?
Sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can. I'd love to do that.
Awesome.
Because God works in amazing ways.
He does.
And so for the last 27 years, I have been volunteering with CEF in this sensitive country. But God has done such amazing things over those 27 years. He helped us to restart, I would say, the ministry about 20 years ago. I got into the ministry just because my church asked me if I would be willing to kind of lead the vacation Bible school. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know what a vacation Bible school was. Isn't that funny?
That really is.
Yeah, but that's how the Lord works, isn't it? And so I said, okay. And I told them, I don't know what a vacation Bible school is, but I'm happy to lead it. And from one thing led to the other. We had good news clubs. We had these rallies, and we've done Christmas party club programs. It's been amazing how God has been working.
That is awesome. That is awesome. It's kind of funny that you should mention VBS, because we were talking with Andy Bunn not that long ago about his involvement with MCM, and he too mentioned VBS as being one of the key factors that brought people into CEF. So it's funny how all of these different ministries kind of come together, and all for the work of the Lord. And
that's true.
All to reach children.
That is true. God has amazing ways in which He weaves things together.
He does.
And just talking about VBS, in the COVID time, we couldn't have these vacation Bible schools. And so we were wondering as a team as to how we do it. And God blessed us and brought technical people on board so that we had a VBS of 1,300 children connecting in, and not only from our country, not only from the region, but even across the world.
That is awesome. You can't see my face on the podcast, obviously, but I'm in slight shock, because that's a huge number.
It
and
is.
In a time like COVID, to see that many kids coming together just to learn about Jesus, that's an amazing praise.
And we had so many conversions, and so many who wanted to know the Lord. And on an online platform, how do you do that? We debated about it, and then this breakout room option was really good, and our counselor would go in with this child, and we saw children in tears coming to know the Lord.
That is awesome. Oh, I love that. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a detour and go straight into our ministry of SPAN. Mm-hmm. So SPAN, for me, is kind of a new topic. It's a little bit hard to find information on, which is why we asked you here.
All right. Thank you. Well, I hope I can debug some of that.
I do too. I'm sure it'll be fine. So can you just kind of give us an idea of what is SPAN, or where did it come? Where did the idea come from, and why we do it?
Right. Now, for those of us listening to me, if you don't know what SPAN is, it's an acronym that stands for Sponsor a National. It is one of the programs of CEF through which we want to support and encourage national workers in each of the countries. We are in more than 190 nations of the world, and we want to encourage the locals, the nationals, to come forward and serve in children's ministry and serve with CEF. So sponsor a national worker, is a way that we can sponsor or support them as they work full-time with CEF.
Awesome. And that's financially, correct?
That is true. That is financially true. The way, the history you talked about, how did this come about? The history was, in the past, CEF, and even currently, we send missionaries to these countries, these nations. But when you are a missionary from another country, let's say US or Korea or one of the sending nations, they have their limitations of language, culture, just integrating with the society. But a national is a member of that society, and they're very fluent in the language, in the customs, in the culture. And so we found that the ministry expands when you have a national worker.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, that's a really neat perspective too, because I think so many times we think of missionaries as, like you said, we start in one country and we are sent to another country. But seeing God using people in their own hometown, their own village, wherever they may be, to impact kids in the community is such a sweet opportunity. And I love that CEF, we've decided to come alongside those individuals and help support them however we can. So with us talking about this support, how do individuals get that support? What's the process for becoming part of SPAN?
That's a good question. So it all comes down to training. And we have, as you know, in CEF, I'm sure you've covered it, we have a lot of training programs. One of them, once an individual decides to work with CEF full-time, we have what is known as Children's Ministry Institute. This year, we have 26 institutes running all over the world.
So cool.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
And so once a person, let's say, take my example, if I was a volunteer and I want to go full-time into ministry, I would apply to CMI, and once it's approved, I would then go through the 12-week training. After that, if I have, as the Lord leads me, decided to move into full-time ministry, I can apply to my national office or local office, and then it has to get approved by the regional director. And at headquarters here with the finance team, we would get their nomination with all sorts of papers, their reference checks, what trainings they've done, what ministry is being done. Once that individual is approved as a sponsored national worker, he or she is added to the list. Every month, we then send the support to that individual.
That's cool. So it's not just somebody who out of nowhere is like, oh, I want to minister to kids. I need money. They have to actually go through.
It's a process.
A pretty intensive process.
It is a process, and it has to be verified both at the local level, national level, and even at the regional level.
Yeah.
And also we encourage our SPAN recipients, sponsor national recipients, that they need to send us at least quarterly their newsletters of the ministry they're doing. And this helps not only the us as who are administering the program, but even helps our ministry partners, because they get to read about all that God is doing through these workers on the field.
That's awesome. And I've had the privilege of being able to read just a few, not a whole lot, but a few of those newsletters, and seeing how, one, grateful they are for the support, and then two, how they're using that to reach their community. It's not void.
That's true. It's good you mentioned that. To us, this amount looks very small, and it's right. A monthly support is between $150 and $200. But to the worker, to the missionary on the field, that really helps that missionary to plan for his family needs, for his children's education, or various other needs. And God has really blessed the 5 loaves and 2 fish, to multiply the ministry, and they're able to go and reach children all over. We have one of our workers, SPAN recipients. His family has been surviving based on this support that we provided. And can you believe that when his daughter became of age to get employed, she actually left her job to be a full-time missionary for CEF, and today she is a SPAN recipient.
It speaks to their heart attitude.
That's true.
They're not in it for money or for fame. It's all just wanting to spread the love of Jesus. And
it's love for Jesus. It's love for those children, those boys and girls.
Oh, yeah.
And you should see the passion on the field. And this young woman, I served with her just a few months ago in a vacation Bible school. And the passion she has at that age, it's really amazing.
That is awesome. So we're sharing a little bit about these testimonies. And I guess my next question to ask you is, how does SPAN impact families? You shared a little bit about this young woman who was able to go back into ministry after getting a full-time job and just saw the need in her community to go back and minister. Do we have any other stories that are kind of like that?
So we have this sister from Philippines who was living a good life serving in Philippines. She is from Philippines. But one time the Lord put in her heart for a burden for the children of Guam. And she left to Guam and is serving the Lord there. And SPAN is the reason that she can survive in a foreign country, and it's a small island, and serve the children. And she was even talking about in the last Christmas Party Club program that we had in 2023, that she even worked with a missionary organization to take a flight to a remote island so that she could handle a club there. Within 1 hour, she had to, after landing, the pilot said in 1 hour he's going to come back. So within an hour, she had to run a club. And do you know where the club was run?
I guess at the airport is my question.
No, on a treetop.
On a
tree house. And the children actually pleaded with her saying, "Ma'am, could you please come back?" So now she actually goes once in a while to conduct a Good News Club on a treetop.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I've also read in some of our impact magazines that families are provided for. We see the gospel being shared. I mean, this story is evidence. And this is just one of many. This
is just one of many. I can give you another one in Sudan, and between the conflict that's happening South Sudan and North Sudan, of what is happening there. One of our SPAN recipients, a missionary, had such a passion for the children. He said he applied to his national director saying, "I would like to go into the war area, to the refugee camps, to share the gospel." And the national director looks at him and says, "But it's going to be risky. You could lose your life." He said, "Yeah, but if I don't go, who will share the gospel with those children?"
Yeah.
And he went into those war-torn areas, and he is dealing, and these are children who have come through war, and so the trauma that they've gone through, and that has resulted, their behavioral patterns are very difficult. Even the school teachers were not able to handle them. But this brother went and started sharing the gospel. And the school principal actually called him back and said, "What did you do with those children? They're suddenly very changed." And he said, "All I did was share about Jesus to them."
That's a testimony of the power of God.
Amen. Amen.
That's so interesting to me, to see the USA side of things and then see other countries around the world and hear their stories. And they're similar in certain ways, mainly that God transforms lives.
That is true.
It doesn't have to be something that's super radical or, something that's just out beyond our imagination. It's just the simple power of God working wherever people are open.
Others are seeing that. Parents have testified saying that, "Oh, what did you do? My son or my daughter is now behaving very differently. I couldn't control him, but now he's, very mellowed down and obedient." It is only God's grace. As you said, that transformation that happens is because the Spirit of the Lord works in their hearts.
And that is awesome. And it's not because of SPAN, but it's such a blessing to see something that our headquarters is involved in pour over into the lives of others. That's why we're here, is to help support, and getting to see just that small glimpse of, somebody who's willing to serve God and who has asked for, not, like you said, it's not a huge amount of money. It's very little.
That is true.
But they're taking it's like the talents. They're taking it and they're putting it to good use, and God is multiplying.
God is multiplying. So we currently have about 1,700 SPAN recipients globally. And the vision, as our global vision is to reach 100 million children every year by the year 2032. So for that, this program also has to grow. The number of recipients has to grow. And so we're really praying that God would bring more ministry partners to join with us so that we can reach about 10,000 SPAN recipients by the year 2032 to achieve the goal of reaching 100 million children annually. So pray with us.
Yeah, please join us. That's the goal that's been set on the leadership hearts, and it's poured over into those of us who are supporting those roles as well. And it would be amazing to see all of those kids come. It's possible. And we're looking forward to seeing how God's going to work through our national missionaries who are serving right where they are. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I have so very much enjoyed talking to you and getting to learn a little bit more about SPAN and ultimately the impact that God is having around the world through these people who are willing to just put their all on the line for Him and are willing to give up a lot and only ask for a little. It's such a testimony to the love and grace of God and the power of God and how He's providing for them, and they're seeing the fruit of their labor. So thank you for coming and sharing with us. It's really been such a privilege.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And let's never forget that great is their reward in heaven.
Yes, amen. If you would like to learn more about who CEF is and what we believe, you can visit cefonline.com/about. You can also learn how to sponsor national workers by visiting cefonline.com/SPAN. This will also be linked in the show notes. Be sure to check out Unite Radio. We unite kids with the gospel through adventures and foundational biblical truths. Give us a like and subscribe to keep up to date on both this podcast and our kids program. Thanks for listening.